Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. I really wanted to talk about something today. I've kind of talked about this before with Microsoft and the way that they're approaching software versus hardware, but we've seen some big shifts as of late and some rumors of some even bigger shifts for the brand itself. So I wanted to talk about everything. As you can see from the thumbnail here, I posited that the PlayStation is going to be an Xbox now, essentially, because it looks like Microsoft is shifting further and further away from hardware sales and focusing on their software sales. This comes hand in hand with some reports that Game Pass subscriptions have been up quite a bit since things like Indiana Jones and released on Game Pass. They've had some greater success with that. It has been going up, but their hardware sales have been going down. They have been pushing their marketing campaign that this is an Xbox, showing the console itself, or this is an Xbox, your phone, and like a smart TV and stuff like that. And it looks like they're shifting toward pretty much everything except an Xbox being an Xbox at this point. It looks like they're probably going to be going the way of Sega. And I say all this because we recently got an announcement, I believe today or yesterday, that Forza Horizon 5 is going to be coming to PlayStation 5. That's a very big deal for a lot of reasons. We have been getting some Xbox games drip fed over to the PlayStation as well as the Nintendo Switch. Microsoft's had a relationship with Nintendo. They've been porting their games over. We got like Cuphead and like the Ori games over to Nintendo first, and then they made their way over to PlayStation. And now it's looking like we're getting more and more games, not just going to Switch, but also going to PlayStation or headlining on the PlayStation. So we got like Sea of Thieves, we got Pentiment, and Hi-Fi Rush that all made their way over to the PlayStation 5. And now we're getting Forza. Now that's a really big deal because PlayStation already has their marquee racing game in Gran Turismo, and Microsoft has always had Forza as the direct competitor there. And most people, I think, at this point would say, like, later on in the life cycle, the Forza games have been much better than the Gran Turismo games. Despite Gran Turismo still having its own identity and being like a more serious racing sim and everything, and having a pedigree from their older games, it looks like more people are probably preferring the Forza games. So having that as one of their marquee like genres that they could push on their console, and now putting it on a competitor that already has competition for their own property is pretty telling for me. This comes hand in hand with Microsoft reportedly going to be transferring over Microsoft Flight Simulator to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch 2, as well as the Halo Master Chief Collection, and likely every other Halo game as well going to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch 2. This is a huge deal for Microsoft. I think they're seeing the turning point. They've already admitted several times that they are not winning any races. They're not in a race at this point. They're not competing with anybody because they're just so far behind. They had a chance during the 7th generation with the Xbox 360. They took off hard. They had plenty of hardware problems. I think that's what hamstrung them the most, but they had a great price point. Their engine was a little bit easier to work with. The Xbox 360 architecture was just better than the PlayStation 3's overall, but since Blu-ray really took off, Sony was able to like capture the market a little bit better, little bit by bit, and finally clawed it back to the point where they even like won the generation against Microsoft, but lost to Nintendo with the Wii, but then pulled ahead in a big way with the PlayStation 4. Microsoft had a very favorable position at one point in the hardware space, and now they're just really not doing it anymore. Despite the Xbox Series X and S selling pretty darn well in the grand scheme of things, they're still outselling some of the better selling consoles of all time. They're just lagging behind the PlayStation 5 and by extension the Nintendo Switch by so much. It makes sense for Microsoft to want to try and shift their properties over to these other competitors so they can make some more money. Again, especially after their huge acquisitions with Bethesda and Activision Blizzard, they need to be making their money back, and they're not going to be doing that by keeping their games all on console that no one really has anymore. And it's a shame to see. I say this primarily because competition is so good for the gaming space in general. Seeing a console leave kind of sucks. I remember back in the day, I had a Dreamcast when it was new, when it was cool, when it was a really interesting thing to have. And I remember Sega dying and exiting the console race. And it was really crazy to see them all of a sudden put Sonic on a Nintendo console. It was really bizarre to see. We've seen that before as well. Atari hit hard for a while, but then had to exit the games console business. We had Nintendo and Sega competing for a while, then Sony stepped into the ring, and then Microsoft stepped into the ring right as Sega was really just about to exit. And then they've been a really strong powerhouse. We've had that big three, and now it's looking like we're going to drop down to two again. And that that's a really scary thing, because as we've seen, Sony is apt to push the pricing structure of their games and their consoles really, really high. We're seeing $70 games. We're seeing a flipping $800 Pro console for the PlayStation 5. We're seeing them really go hard, and it's because they have a favorable position here. Nintendo's going to be the only one to challenge them, and their markets aren't really quite the same because Nintendo's operating in the mobile space more than the home console space. It's kind of a different thing since it's a hybrid, but they're not really directly competing with each other because they satisfy two different markets. Hopefully the Switch 2 will put some pressure on Sony, but without Microsoft, this might get a little bit ugly in terms of price gouging, and I hope that we see someone step up to fill the void. Heck, I wouldn't mind Sega jumping back into the console race. I think that would be really interesting. They were always ahead of their time. The Dreamcast is one of the most advanced console ideas ever. They really had a lot going for them. They just missed the mark with so many things before that they really lost their footing. They had a chance to stay in, they just couldn't do it. But this is all to say that Microsoft looks like they are exiting the console business, shifting towards software on every platform. This is really good for gamers that don't play on Xbox. This is great for me. I've never really played a lot on Xbox. I do have an Xbox One now, but I don't have any new technology here. I'm not playing the newest games. I could get Game Pass for a few months so I can play something like Indiana Jones or play Starfield, stuff like that. But now it's looking like it doesn't matter what console you own, Microsoft's going to put their games on whatever. And having like Master Chief Collection on Nintendo Switch 2 would be huge. The Gears of War series, they could milk their old franchises so well on the Nintendo Switch 2. They could charge a premium price point very easily. Same thing for PlayStation, honestly. Everyone would love to jump into Master Chief Collection on PlayStation and play online. People would die for that. It would be a crazy thing to see Master Chief on a PlayStation console. It'd be even greater for the Nintendo Switch, because then we'd have the opportunity to have Master Chief and Smash in a very real way like we haven't seen before. So I think this is good for the gaming industry. I like having exclusives on multiple platforms after a while at least. It's good to see games able to be played on whatever platform you play it on. I think having the diversity is really great. If I want to play on the go and I play it on Nintendo Switch 2, that's awesome. If not, if I like to sit at home and play games, more hardcore stuff like Halo games, great, I can do that on my PlayStation now. It's just a bummer that it looks like Xbox is probably exiting the console market. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they are planning another console. Maybe that will do well enough to keep them in the market, but it sure looks like the shifting is there. They're clearly focusing on software more than anything else, with Game Pass being their most successful property here, and being able to just put their games on everything and sell more probably is more appealing than trying to sell hardware in a market where people just don't care about it anymore. Again, it's a little bit of a bummer to see. I kind of am sad too, because this means that physical sales are definitely going down. We've seen that decline over the last several years, even the last decade. We've seen physical media really drop, and we've seen some reports recently saying that they are dropping even more. So having Game Pass is very cool. For me, it's sad because I want more preservation. I like to have my games for forever and play them whenever I feel like it. I like busting out my old stuff. So this is a little bit scary going forward, but I'd love if they got a bunch of physical copies. If I got the Master Chief Collection on PlayStation and the Nintendo Switch 2 and stuff like that, get all those old properties and preserve them. That would be really cool for me. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Do you think Xbox is going to step away from the hardware? Do you think they're only going to focus on software? Do you think that we're going to get this stuff all over on the PlayStation and Switch 2? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.